Good morning. This is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi, and we're here for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. What day are you going to speak? I don't know. Anyway, happy Boxing Day. Happy day after Christmas to people. I'm sure many people still have vacation today. And, you know, one of the things I like to do on Christmas and Christmas Eve is read the many books I have that are Corgi Christmas stories. Yes, people that have Cavaliers like my sister don't know of such a thing, but there are Corgi Christmas stories. I think I read to you a couple years ago from The Watching, which is about Corgis going on Christmas Eve to watch the Nativity, and they get to see all the animals that have crossed the Rainbow Bridge. This book was written as a fundraiser for Corgi Rescue and Corgi Aid. And so that book is very dear to me. It's pretty long. I mean, it's not a quick read. And so I read that. And then this amazing Corgi artist, Billy Stahl in Germany. You can check out her information if you don't know about her at corgihouse.de. She does a 25-day advent calendar of Corgis doing fun things, and several years those things became books. So we've read those. But a few years ago, I think it was on Corgi Items, I found this wonderful book that I want to talk to you about today called Rescue Rupert. And look at Rupert. He is the saddest, cutest Corgi ever. And the author is Karen Reed, who passed away in 2008. She lived in Tennessee, and she finished the book in June and was diagnosed with cancer a few days later. But this is the sweetest book. So I will read you some little bits of it so you get the idea of it. But I mean, her paintings in here are just incredible. Rupert's story began many Christmases ago on a particularly cold and snowy Christmas Eve. Sadly, Rupert was a homeless Corgi on Christmas Eve who desperately needed to be rescued. Not exactly sure where he was headed, Rupert wandered to a new town. The sweet little Corgi hoped to find a new home that would provide food, shelter, and warmth. But most of all, he wished for a family he could love and who would love him and cherish him in return. Every rescued dogs. Look at the cute town. They've got the saddle shop and they've got the pet store with a Corgi in it. Lavish decorations sparkled through the charming town, and stores bulged with gifts and holiday finery. It was apparent that Christmas was a favorite time of year in this joyful place. Rupert sensed a feeling of magic in the air, and he felt certain that this town would hold the answer to his dreams. Rupert was definitely in need. He spotted an inviting-looking pet shop in the middle of town. Maybe this was his answer. The cute Corgi scratched the door, hoping that someone might see him. Sure enough, as he peered through the window, he saw someone purchasing a puppy. Rupert thought to himself, if only I were a puppy, somebody might want me. He was heartbroken when the shop owner locked up the door and walked away without even a smile or a pat on the head for poor Rupert. Tired and hungry, Rupert stopped at a Christmas tree lot at the edge of town. The man selling trees huddled around the warmth of a small fire. He longed to join them. Perhaps one of them might even take him home. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a large, scary dog chased the terrified Corgi away. Danny remembers this. The poor little Corgi could not help wondering why no one wanted him. Maybe it was because he had short legs. Do we have short legs? We haven't noticed. Or could it be because he had such big ears? Big ears. If only he could show someone how much he could help around a house or a farm, then perhaps he could find a home. Rupert was a Pembroke Welsh Corgi, and even though they have short little legs, they are known for their speed and willingness to work. They make excellent herding dogs, and their talents and instincts are useful around the farm. If their services are not needed for rounding up sheep, they are also content to be house dogs because of their loyal and loving attitude towards their families. Yes. And I love this picture at the bottom of the page. It shows a little girl with her horse show ribbons with a corgi at the foot of her bed. I did not I have a corgi when I was a child, but that would have been me. I didn't like corgis at that point, actually, so that's why I didn't have one. Just ahead, Rupert spotted a cheerful-looking farmhouse. In the front window, a radiant tree glowing with brilliant lights guided him through the storm. Just as he curled up on the welcome mat, the lights in the house were turned off. Tired and lonely, Rupert fell asleep, dreaming that this might be his forever home. He woke up a short time later, hearing strange noises. The snow had stopped. He looked up and saw a large group of animals running around the house. His corgi instincts took over and he dashed off the porch. He was definitely a corgi and he had a job to do. Next to the house was a small fenced paddock, and luckily the gate was open. One by one, Rupert herded those large animals into the paddock. Once he had them all safely in the paddock, he stood guard at the gate. He hoped the people that he had herded these for would come out and adopt him. Suddenly, he heard a noise from the top of the roof. He looked up and saw an angry man dressed in a red suit standing on the rooftop yelling, "Where did those darn reindeer go?" "So that's what they are. They're reindeer," Rupert said. The next thing Rupert knew, Santa was standing right next to him. "Well, what have we got here? What a cute little guy you are doing out on such a cold, windy night. I know you don't live here because I know all of the families and all of the pets in this town." Santa reached down to pet Rupert and let him know what an excellent job he had done rounding up those reindeer. When Santa ran his hand across the corgi's side, he could feel Rupert's ribs. A hungry corgi. "You poor little guy. It looks like it's been a while since you've had a good meal. Lucky for you and me, Mrs. Claus is an excellent cook, and she has packed quite a few goodies for my trip, including a sandwich, which Santa gives to Rupert. Why don't you help me come along on this evening, just in case something spooks these reindeer again? I'm already behind schedule." Rupert was happy to do that. Into the night they flew, and Rupert felt like he was in heaven. He witnessed what a rare and wonderful spirit Santa was as he gifted the world with joy and happiness. Santa just might need Rupert again, and Rupert felt good to be needed. Here he is riding in the sleigh with the reindeer. And as we often see in these kinds of books, the last stop they made was not at a house, but at a lush field covered with flowers. In the middle of this enchanting place was the beautiful Rainbow Bridge. "Please get some well-deserved rest, my friend. It is not your time to go to the Rainbow Bridge. This is a mystical place where there is plenty of food, good health, and friends to play with until their loving owners come to join them. Until that time, each animal is happy in the serenity of this unimaginable, peaceful, and beautiful place." So this is an amazing picture of across the Rainbow Bridge, which is really a bridge, and all the animals playing. And Rupert watching some corgis. Tears welled up in Santa's eyes as a friend came running towards him, barking. It was not so long ago that Santa's favorite corgi named Calvin had passed away. Because of the love they shared, he always felt that it would be impossible to find another corgi like Calvin. Calvin jumped onto Santa's lap and licked away the tears. He said, "You filled my life with such joy and happiness, and I will always love you." Santa's magical spirit allows him to be the only person who can come and go from the Rainbow Bridge. And because he lives forever, he can go to visit this special place and see his special corgi every year. And of course, Santa always brings the most wonderful bags of toys and treats, enough to last till next Christmas. I love this picture across the Rainbow Bridge with all the corgis opening their presents from Santa. The evening seemed to last forever, but it was over in the blink of an eye, and soon they were home at the North Pole. Suddenly, Rupert could see the bright lights. As they approached the North Pole, the corgi stared in awe as the most exquisite and absolutely splendid fairyland appeared before him. "We're not quite through with our work, my little helper," Santa said to Rupert. Rupert realized quickly that he needed to help with the reindeer, and here he is leading the reindeer into the barn after their big trip around the world. Santa scooped up his new Corgi and gave him a big hug. I didn't know what I would have done without you this evening. I have a surprise for you. There is someone I want you to meet. Rupert was very excited to meet Mrs. Claus. She was a fabulous cook, and he was getting hungry again. Santa carried the tired little dog through the snow. Off in the distance, Rupert saw the beautiful vision of a spellbinding cottage covered in sparkling lights. Here's little Rupert being carried by Santa. He's so sad and tired. And then there's Santa's house where Mrs. Claus is cooking. Rupert says, if happiness and love have an aroma, this is what it smells like. Then they get inside. Mrs. Santa says, you're late. And where did you find this pitiful, sweet little Corgi? I thought we had an agreement that our family was large enough. And here's poor little Rupert. Who cannot love that poor little Rupert? Just then, Rupert looked into Mrs. Claus's face. As she gazed at his eyes, she said, oh, never mind. You come on in and get warm before you both catch a cold. And as the door opened wide, Rupert could not believe his eyes. There before him were at least half a dozen Corgis of all different ages. They were tricolored sable and some that looked like him. A family, he thought to himself, something I've always dreamed of. A tear of happiness rolled down his cheek as an overwhelming sense of gladness filled his Corgi heart. They all turned and walked together into the glowing warmth and security of Santa's home. Rupert turned his head and looked back to the heavens and said a prayer of thanks, for he knew he had found his forever home. So here's the Corgis all around the fire. And then there's the Corgis all around the Christmas tree. Such cute pictures of Corgis in the background, too. So Rescue Rupert is one of my favorite Christmas stories. And I think you can still get it on Amazon. It's by Karen Reed, R-E-E-D. And it is just a wonderful little Christmas tradition to read this with your Corgi. And it inspires all of us at this time of year to think about the shelters and the rescue groups for our breeds and how we might be able to help them. We still have a few days to make donations that are tax deductible for this year. But if you can't do that, blankets, lots of people make blankets out of fleece that they just get inexpensively at a fabric store and just sew a couple pieces together to give to shelters for dogs. Some people donate food, anything that you can think of that can help a shelter, and they often have lists of things they need. Sometimes they just need someone to come in and tidy up the office and file things for a couple hours, and that's hard to find people to do because people want to walk dogs and spend time with dogs at shelters. So remember our shelter dogs and our rescue groups at this time of year and do what you can to help them. And of course, love your own Corgis and pets. He does not like a hug. And hold them close throughout the holiday season so that your dog doesn't become Rupert looking for a home. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. I'm at my educator job tomorrow, but I will be back on Saturday with another episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And have a nice time boxing today. Yes, it is a sweet book, isn't it, Danny? And Rupert's so cute. I think it's a real gift to the pet world that we have this book, honestly. Thank you, Karen Reed. And she wasn't very old when she passed away either. I think, like in her mid-50s. Biscuit, what do you think? He says, I wouldn't eat Rupert. He could come live with us, maybe. Thanks for joining us. Happy Boxing Day. Everybody have a great day.